Oh, hello everybody. I guess it's true that the camera adds 10 pounds. It's either that or I'm going on a diet tomorrow. But when Kate and her team came in to film at the restaurants, it was kind of funny because they walked up. My controller told me the story. Carlos said they walked up to him, and I had forgot to warn him that they're coming in, and I got there a couple minutes after them. And they said, "We're with the NRA." And he looked at them and he said, "I'm not giving." Sorry, Texas table. Californians aren't as keen on guns, but so one of the filmmakers turned to the other and said, "We got another one." So I want to thank the NRA for, and this time it's restaurants, not rifles. I want to thank the NRA for this honor, and it truly, truly humbles me. But I need to say that I'm also a bit embarrassed to be accepting this award. See, my transition took place about 11 years ago, so the majority of my success was achieved as a privileged white male. And I cannot say that I know what it was like the other winners who came up before me, to work through barriers of race and ethnicity. I also do not know what it is like, really, to become successful as a woman, achieving success in a man's world. And that, actually, I did get a dose of that, however. When the first time I walked into a boardroom after my transition, and when I had something to say and I wasn't really taken very seriously, and then 5-10 minutes later, when the man on the other end of the room came up with the same idea, they thought it was great. So I say, things are changing, but I did realize at that moment that, I haven't earned the right to say I struggled to become successful as a woman. So that's something I just want to make sure everybody knows about how I feel about that. I do know, however, what it's like to suppress your identity for most of your life, and actually for over 50 years, feeling like I don't fit in, bullied mercilessly by so many of the people I thought were friends. I got past this by buffing up and toughening up, eventually setting city physical fitness records. In fact, one of my good friends is Bruce Jenner now, now Caitlyn Jenner, who I looked up to so much when I was younger. And for many of us, you'll find that it's common for trans women, people that transition from male to female, to have had very macho male-oriented professions. My good friend who was a mentor to me as I transitioned, she was on the LA SWAT team for 22 years. I knew jet fighter pilots, I knew race car drivers, and of course Caitlyn Jenner, was the greatest athlete in the world. It was a way to try and get past it. It was a way to try and make like it wasn't there. And it was a way to feel alive when you really weren't feeling alive in your own body. I mean, when I'd go whitewater kayaking or rock climbing and I felt that my life was in the balance, I felt alive, more alive than I did before. So it took me several years after transition to start to feel comfortable with myself. Feeling like a woman inside all these years doesn't mean that after all those years of living life as a macho male, I was going to feel comfortable once I transitioned. So it took me several years of finding myself until I realized that the answer was to stop trying so hard and just accept every part of me. And I speak right now, I go out and speak to schools. I've spoken over 300-400 times in the last 6 years. And one of the things I talk about is paralleling my life with others in the room and saying, what to these kids, what is it in your life, that you want to be in your life, that maybe you're embarrassed of or told you weren't good enough, or told that, or you're ashamed of for some reason. Don't be afraid to dig deep. Don't be afraid to be who you are, no matter what that is in your life. What to make yourself, whether it's just to make yourself a success and whatever success means to you. So I did stop trying so hard, and I did accept all parts of myself, and I found peace. Most of my days now are spent trying to help others, because that's what fills me up, and I feel I'm finally capable of that. I did feel like I helped a lot of people in the restaurant business, and there was a time when I had about 600 employees, and I'd be reminded of how I've helped all of their lives and their families. But I wanted more. I wanted, to give in other ways as well. And once I found the peace within myself, I was able to do that. So now, as you saw on the screen, I work as vice chair of the Trevor Project, and I can help save young lives, ages 13 to 25. For those of you who don't know, suicide is the second leading cause of death in young people, and it's even more so in LGBTQ youth. So this is something that I can do to help. And then about 6 years ago, as I also talked about in the film, I hired a couple trans people like Christy, who you saw in the film, and realized how lucky I was to have transitioned as the boss of my own company, because when I heard their stories of what they went through in the workplace, how difficult it was to get jobs and how they do anything to hold on to them and the abuse they put up with because they felt that, they had to. Christy, who came to us as a cashier, who had been fired for saying she wanted to use the women's restroom, even though she clearly identified as a woman, forced to use the men's restroom, and then sexually molested. And then the manager, instead of supporting her and calling the police and taking care of it, he fired her because he felt that this was too much trouble for him. So Christy eventually became general manager, lead manager of our most busy restaurant, one of the top 10 restaurants in a chain of 600 restaurants. Hard to read over here. I wrote down a lot of comments. I usually just speak from the heart, but they told me I only had 3 minutes. But then when I realized how long everybody else took, I said, okay, I can take my time. Because I had all this timed out at 3 minutes. So Alyssa, don't get mad at me that I'm going over a little bit. So then I decided to start Trans Can Work because of the experiences I saw trans women going through. And that was an organization where we go out and we train other businesses to learn how to be diverse in the transgender, gender nonconforming spaces and how to welcome people into their workplace and make a success out of it. And then we have jobs boards, and we actually bring people to the businesses to be hired. And we've educated thousands of businesses in just a couple years, and we've had hundreds of people help get jobs. And this has been an amazing success story for us. And in my own restaurants, as I said again in the film, that we hired over 40 transgender people over several years. But I wanted to point that out again because over 25% of those people made the pathway to management within several years. Now that's a really high number. I think we all know that. So that's a testament to how hard they were willing to work once they were given a level playing field. Now, one last piece of info I'd like to share with you has to do with changes that are happening in the youth today that are going to really change the workplaces of the future. The Williams Institute that we work closely with from UCLA Law School, the most renowned in doing research on LGBT matters across the world. In fact, it was their information used for same-sex marriage decision in the Supreme Court. They came out with a recent study in California that said 27% of the youth 12 to 17 are now identifying or being identified by their peers as gender nonconforming. That's a huge number. But what it tells us is that the kids of today, having the opportunity, don't want to live necessarily in the boxes that people want them, the strict boxes that they were told to live in. And this is going to change the workplaces. It's going to change the workplaces. It's going to change social fabric, not in bad ways, but there's things we all need to learn. And Trans Can Work and other organizations, we're willing to be there and help people learn that. Last week I spoke to over 500 executives of Fortune 500 companies, and changes are happening. The last thing I want to say, talk about some thank yous. My wife Barbara came here all the way from California with my son Shimon, and Barbara was an incredible support for me through my transition. Unfortunately, we didn't make it as a couple, and that happens. Happens to the best of us, even those who aren't involved in a transition from male to female. But she was very supportive through it all. And we're still business partners, and we still have 3 wonderful children. Shimon, who's here tonight, literally saved my life 11 years ago when I was ready to walk in front of a car. So, thank you, Shimon. My 2 other lovely daughters are home. Ariel, who's too busy going to school full-time and working full-time, hard-working gal. My older daughter, Brittany, who's home taking care of our 1-year-old grandson, just had his first birthday. So I want to thank them. I want to thank my partner who's at home with my 4-year-old child, Isidore. And now, some of you may think I'm crazy, starting a family all over again at my age. But, raising children was always the best part of my life. Being an employer, maybe second. But raising children was always the best part of my life. And now every morning I get to see the world completely new through his eyes. Can't get much better. So thank you, Carmel and Isidore. And I want to thank the NRA, and I want to thank all the people in this room, because the NRA, with your support, had the courage to support someone from the LGBT community. I don't know if this is the first time someone from the LGBT community has won the Face of Diversity Award from the NRA, but certainly I know that, I feel privileged that they're doing that. I feel honored. I am so grateful that you're all willing to support the LGBT community. Because as I said in the film, we are a diverse workforce. When we look out at our employees, they come from all walks of life. And whether it's the LGBT, whether it's racial and ethnic diversities, that's what's so wonderful about the restaurant business, that we get to live in that kind of a world. So thank you so much for supporting us.